Welcome back, music fans, to the Genesis review series. It is time now to delve deep into the Phil Collins years. Last time we did Duke, the album where Phil Collins kind of finds his voice, and now we're going to do something a little bit different with ABACAB, this album right here, their follow up. So, as always, we got Jacob Martin here on our Genesis series. Jacob, how are you this evening?
I'm doing pretty good.
That is great to hear. So, ABACAB, what happened in between Duke and this album? Well, Phil Collins decided to make his own solo album called Face Value, and that album had a little song called "In the Air Tonight" on it, and it did okay, you might say. No, it was a sensation. The album blew up overnight. "In the Air Tonight" had a music video that was played a lot, all over radio. Radio played that song to death, and everybody knows the do 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 do. So now it's time for Phil to make another album with Genesis again. And now that people know Phil Collins more from his solo career, a little bit of that sound is slipping into Genesis, but I still wouldn't say it sounds exactly like his solo stuff. I mean, there's some stuff on here that sounds a lot like his solo stuff, but it's still very different. This album, they were kind of getting into abstract art with this album, as you can tell by the album cover. I have no idea what this is. It's just a bunch of colored blobs.
Yeah, I was about to ask you that. I'm like, what am I looking at this album cover?
What makes it even more confusing is that there's different versions of the album cover. This is just one of them. The album cover, all of the blobs are the same, but depending on which copy you get, the colors are different. So if you pick up ABACAB, your copy may not even have the same colors as this one.
Oh, wow.
There's the back. This is the one that I like the best because it reminds me of printer ink. That's kind of what I think it is. It's like colors that mix for printer ink. I don't know. That's the best way I can describe it. But anyway, Genesis have switched producers. They stopped working with David Henschel, who they've been working with since Trick of the Tail, and instead went with Hugh Padgham, who had worked with Phil Collins on his solo album Face Value. Hugh Padgham helped Phil come up with his iconic gated drum sound. Especially, you can hear that on the do 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 do. And honestly, I feel like a lot of people don't realize how important this album here is in the world of producing, because Hugh Padgham's work on this album here, especially with that drum sound, some of the synth sounds Tony Banks uses, very influential in the sound of the 80s. You can hear a lot of these sounds on practically every record from the decade. So a lot of people don't really get how influential this album is, from a production standpoint at least. So I'm excited to talk about this because this album is very divisive amongst Genesis fans. A lot of people say this is their worst album. Yeah. I don't know why.
Worst album?
I have no idea. Then there's other people who absolutely love this album. So we're going to talk about it, and you'll see what we decide about this album. So, Jacob, what's your brief thoughts here on the album?
First off, I'm like, worst Genesis album? Did people forget how forgettable the debut album was?
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't a bad album, but it wasn't great either.
No.
But with ABACAB, I'm a sucker for like bombastic 80s production, and this album blew me away listening to it. There's just some really cool sounds on this album, some great catchy songs. I guess I can see why somebody would not like this album, especially if you are more of a fan of the Peter Gabriel era stuff, because listen to Lamb Lies Down on Broadway and ABACAB back to back, and they're two vastly different albums. But both of them do work in their own right. And to be honest, I think ABACAB is a terrific album. And the more I listen to it, I love the album even more. So I can't wait to talk about this one.
Well, like I was saying earlier, this album is supposed to be their delve into abstract art as well as parody of punk and new wave, which were popular at the time. So a
Hmm.
lot of the people who say, "Oh, this is just crappy '80s music," like they don't get what they were going for. A lot of this was them trying to both celebrate and make fun of at the same time some of the popular music trends that were going on, and put a little Genesis spin on it. So without further ado, now we are going to go ahead and start with the review. So you put the record down and you get greeted with the title track, ABACAB.
So you had actually introduced me to this song once before when I did the 900 subscriber contests with the soundtrack to your life. When you submitted yours, this song was on it. Now that's how I first heard the song. This is a really cool song. Uh, I can't tell you what the song's about. It's a 6-minute nonsensical lyric song, but man, there's some good percussion on here. I love the synthesizers from Tony Banks. And even though the song is close to 7 minutes long, it's just an epic 80s pop rock song with some really awesome production, some memorable vocals, and just a really epic way to kick off this album. This one did make my top 5.
Yeah, if you thought the lyrics to The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway were odd, this album, they don't even mean anything half the time. They're just abstract. They're meant more to emphasize the way that the words sound rather than what they mean on this album. I love the way that this song starts out. You just get started with that boom, 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 and then you got Mike Rutherford doing that little guitar thing, boom, 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 boom. And Tony Banks' synthesizer on this song is super cool. I love some of the little fills he does in between, and I like all the little weird little sounds that are on this song. Phil is really keeping the groove on the drums here. I love his vocals, very powerful, and I think that the coolest part of the song is the little outro jam they have at the end, which was unfortunately cut off of the single version. But the way that Tony kind of just holds the chords down, and then Mike is playing this really cool guitar solo at the end. Phil is just jamming on the drums. It's a jam that you wish could go on a little bit longer, even though it's already a pretty long song. But it's like I could just listen to this for a long time. So, epic way to start out this album. I really like this song. Now we are going to get to the big single on this album, No Reply at All, featuring the Earth, Wind, and Fire horns.
I didn't know that part about the Earth, Wind, and Fire horns, but yeah, the big hit from this album, which I'd never heard before until listening to the album for the first time. This was a blind spot, believe it or not. It's awesome. I love the addition of the Earth, Wind, and Fire horns. It's actual members of Earth, Wind, and Fire that played the horns.
Yep, the horn section from Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Wow, I did not know that. That's awesome.
They were also on Phil's debut album, Face Value, on the song I Missed Again.
Okay. But yeah, the horn section is really great. Such a catchy song, which is kind of weird because the lyrics have a more melancholy, sad feel to it. No reply at all. Like very miserable guy, very alone. But man, this song is still really epic. This is I'll say this with another song on the album too that I'd never heard of that was a hit single. It's like, how have I not listened to these songs? These are great Genesis songs. And I wish classic rock stations would play some of these Genesis songs more because this song is awesome, especially that horn section.
So some people may criticize that this is the one that sounds too much like Phil Collins' solo career. I get that, but it's a good song. I love how the horns started out. Mike's guitar on this is really good, kind of keeping the beat. And his bass is also really great on this one. He does a lot of boo boo kind of sound and stuff. Lyrically, this is one of the more straightforward songs on the album. It's a relationship song. He just tries to call, but there's no answer. It's a relationship that he doesn't know if it's going well or not, but he can't get an answer about it. Once again, the Earth, Wind, and Fire horns are killing it on this track. Phil's drums are great. Super catchy. No reply at all. Boo doo doo boo doo. And that bass line. No reply at all. Do 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 do. And then we get to the bridge section where Tony Banks kind of has this sound on his synthesizer. And he's, I get the feeling you try to tell me. It's just a very catchy song. It's one of my favorites on the album. It's very good. I see why this was the big single. Next, we're going to get to how about some progressive rock? So, if you thought the first two songs were too commercial, how about this next one? Me and Sarah Jane. This kind of harkens back more to their early sound. Well, or their early style, but with a more updated and modern, for the time, 80s production.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking this sounded at all like early Genesis because of the 80s production on it. I guess the structure of it, I guess I can see why it would be compared to that. But I think this is another really cool Genesis song. Some great production on it. I especially like the stuff Tony Banks does on this track, especially with the keyboards. I do think that is a highlight. I think this is my least favorite song on the album.
Oh, wow.
Not that it's a bad song. Just like this album is just stacked with great songs, and this one just happens to be in last place. But I still really like it. I think it maybe goes on maybe a little too long, but I think it's still a really awesome song. It's got a lot going for it. But I just prefer the other tracks.
Wow. I've always really loved this song, especially the first time I heard it when I listened to the album. It starts out with the drum machine, and then Tony Banks is kind of playing a piano thing that plays along with the drum machine, like a bum 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 bum. And then Phil Collins is doing a very syncopated vocal with like a closer and closer. The ice is getting closer, and it brings me down. And then it switches up. This song has a lot of switches in it. Changes up a lot. Very dramatic. Like you get some of the stuff Tony Banks does just really sets the mood. And there's this one part where it just builds. It sounds very suspenseful, and then it just hits this major 7 chord when it gets to the part where it goes, first I'm flying, going round, 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 whoa, 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 whoa. The sound that Tony Banks has on his synthesizer is just kind of like at that part, and just it just makes you feel really happy, and then it kind of switches again, and then you get to the outro, the me and Sarah Jane had it coming for a while, and then it kind of ends with that drum machine at the end. The way that the lyrics are set up, I wonder if the song, it's either about someone whose relationship didn't turn out so well, or someone who is just making up a girlfriend. I've looked at the lyrics, and it kind of hints that Sarah Jane may not be a real person. That she's just like someone that Phil made up. This says, I invent a name. So this might be about his adventures that he's come up with his fake girlfriend. I don't know, but look at the lyrics if you want to decide for yourself. But I feel like this is one of my favorite songs on the album. I think it's really epic. Now we are going to get to the last song on the first side, Keep It Dark.
Oh, man, I love this song. This is probably one of the weirder songs on the album. I don't even think I can summarize the plot of this song.
Alien
I
abduction.
think it has something to do with alien abduction.
Alien abduction. So Phil was abducted by aliens, saw a wonderful city where the aliens have better lives than us because they can get along better. But the aliens told him that he couldn't tell other people what he saw, and they told him that instead he has to say that he got kidnapped.
Keep it dark.
Do 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 do.
But yeah, this is like a really weird story, but man, the production, excellent. I love Phil's drumming. The song definitely keeps you engaged. I mean, even the title, Keep It Dark, it's got a nice ring to it. What's crazy is I read this song only charted in the UK. It was going to be released as a single in the US, but it's really weird time signature prevented it from being released as a single. But then again, wasn't what was that?
Oh, Turn It On Again. Yeah.
That had that funky time signature too, and that was a single.
Yeah.
So I call bull on that.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. The first thing I'm going to say about Keep It Dark is the song is in 6, but Phil Collins is playing in 2. So you got this weird 2 against 6 thing where Phil Collins is going 1 2 1 2, and then Mike's guitar is dun 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 1 2 3 4 1 2. So you got this 2 against 6 thing, which is really cool. And then you get into the main part of the song, and Tony Banks has all these cool synthesizer swells. I love a breakdown of the song where it has all the mechanical sounding stuff, and it goes "Keep It Dark," and then Tony Banks harmonizes with that on the synthesizer at the end. Super cool song. I don't know if it's going to be in my top 10 or not, though. I mean, in my top 5 or not. We'll have to see.
It's in my top 5.
I haven't made my list yet. I want it to be, but there's lots of great songs on this album. All right. So we're going to flip the record over, and we're going to start side 2 with Dodo Lurker.
Yeah, this is another really cool song. This has some amazing synthesizer work on it. I don't know who's the true MVP of this album, Phil Collins or Tony Banks. They're both equally good on it. And Mike Rutherford's good on this album, too. All 3 members do a terrific job with the production on this album. I can't even tell you what the song's about. I did read people theorize the song was about submarines, and there's references to water and ships in the song. So
this is another one of those abstract songs that really doesn't have a meaning.
Maybe it's a song about a submarine battle. I don't know. But what I do know is I love the production on this song. I like that little extended jam session on the lurker aspect of the song in the last 2 minutes. Didn't quite make my top 5, but overall I still really enjoyed it. I liked it.
This song is epic. I love the way it starts with just that bow, bow, now, bow, bow, now, and then Mike's guitar, bow, bow. It kind of switches up and it gets into this groove where Phil Collins goes with the drums, bow, down, down, bow, down, bow, 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 and lots of syncopation. And I love the part where Tony Banks on the keyboard goes, then you get into the vocals. I have no idea what this song is vocally about or lyrically about. It makes no sense. It sounds like just a bunch of random phrases that they came up with that just sound cool. I will say, though, that the phrase dog baiter, agitator, asking questions seems he wants to know why. The first time I heard that, I thought he said Darth Vader.
Darth Vader.
It sounds like Darth Vader, agitator. That's what it sounds. In my head, it's still Darth Vader because that's funnier than Dog Vader. But then you get into the section where it's super syncopated and all these weird and wacky sounds, and is talks about the fish who's got a hook in his throat. He's like, fishy got a hook in his throat. Fishy got problems. And there's all these weird sounds going on at the same time. I'm like, what am I listening to right now? This is so weird, but it's so cool. And And then we get back to like it gets thrown in the sea and it gets back into the synthesizer. And then you get this really weird section where they're just playing these tritones like boom, bow, 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 bow. I'm like, if you don't know, the tritone was called the devil in music back in ancient times because it was such a weird sounding interval that people thought it was literally cursed. And they use it in this song. And I'm like, why did they use that? Like, it sounds so weird, but it sounds cool. And then you get to the lurker part where they're just gonna go boom, 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 and Phil Collins just like does this weird. Meanwhile, while looking, a stick in the mud or something like that, two eyes looked at me or whatever. Just like he's like does this weird spoken word thing, and then it's like, here's what it said to me. And Tony Banks has the synthesizer solo. And then there's a riddle at the end of the song. I'm going to have to read the lyrics here. I got the lyric sheet. Where's the lyrics? Oh, it doesn't have them on here. Oh, well. I thought this album had lyrics on the sheet. And I'll put that back in there. Here's a cool picture of the guys. Anyway, I've heard the song so many times I can try to save it. It's like clothes of bronze and hair of brown. Seldom need to breathe, no wings to fly. I have the heart of stone. Has no fear of fire or water. Who am I? And the answer is a submarine. Because this originally, much like the Duke Suite, the hidden Duke Suite on Genesis, was supposed to be part of a larger suite that had other songs on it. And once again, they decided not to make a larger suite to avoid comparisons with Supper's Ready. So all the other songs in this suite were put as B-sides. There's a song called Nami Nanu or something like that was supposed to be the beginning of the suite, and then Dodo and Lurker. And then the end of the suite was called Submarine, and it's a B-side. I forget what it's the B-side to, but it's the B-side of something.
So maybe this song was about submarines.
Maybe. There were some other outtakes from this album as well, though, that ended up on the Three Sides Live album that are really good as well. You should probably have a listen to those sometime because, honestly, I feel like some of the outtakes are better than some of the stuff on the album, if I can believe that.
That's crazy. Yeah, I didn't get the chance to listen to those songs.
Maybe we'll listen to them on the after party, but like some of the outtake, this is the album with the best outtakes. ABACAB could have been a double album, and I would have been all for it. Other people are like, but ABACAB's their worst album. No, it's not.
I think it's a terrific album.
Now we're going to get to the most controversial track in the entire Genesis catalog. Who Done It? Often cited as Genesis's worst song. And
This is considered their worst song.
Well, here's the thing. Every Genesis album, with Phil Collins drumming at least, other than Duke, has one goofy song on it. So it's not like they haven't done goofy songs before.
I mean, they did Goofy even in the Peter Gabriel era. Have you ever heard Harold the Barrel?
You got Harold the Barrel on Nursery Crime. You got Get Him Out by Friday on Foxtrot.
Yep.
You got I Know What I Like on Selling England by the Pound. That's literally about a lawnmower.
Yeah.
You got Counting Out Time on Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. Yep. You got Robbery, Assault, and Battery on Trick of the Tail. You got All in a Mouse's Night on Wind and Wuthering. What's the funny song on in number 3? We'll just go with Snowbound because it's a snowman.
Yeah, that was a weird song.
And then Duke doesn't have one. But they've done goofy songs before.
I mean,
who done it?
Yeah, I guess the ones that hate this song probably either forgot about that or don't know about the other songs because they only know the mainstream Genesis stuff. But I love this song. I am dumbfounded that people think this is their worst song. I don't get it. This is a really, really cool song. Yeah, it's silly, but it's an earworm. Was it me or was it she? Or was it he or she? Was it they or was it D? Or was it... Yeah, like that phrase is repeated for most of the song. Like it's in my head now. And then like I think Phil does that goofy accent again, like he did on Robbery, Assault, and Battery. And it's awesome again on this song. Some great percussion on it. I can't really say what the song is about, but it's catchy.
It's just who done it.
Who done it?
That's about it. That's about all it is lyrically.
Maybe it's a murder mystery song. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, yeah, put this in the next Knives Out movie.
I dare you, Ryan Johnson.
Yeah, come on, Ryan Johnson.
Make it called Knives Out. Who done it?
Who done it?
Anyway,
well, if the next movie is called Who Done It, you know what the song's going to be. Like Glass Onion, he got that title from a Beatles song, and that's how the movie ended. So it could happen.
So this song starts out with this weird synthesizer thing. It's like, and this song is hilarious, by the way. The first time I heard this, I heard it was their worst song, and when I got to it, I couldn't stop but laughing. I just laughed the whole time because I'm like, this is hilarious. What is this? Phil Collins singing in this goofy accent about who did it. It's like, was it you? Was it me? Or was it he or she? And then it gets to the second part. It's like, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. And then it gets to the third part. It's like, we know who did it. So, and then I'm like, what? It's like, this is so dumb. And then at the end where it's just like, we don't know. I'm like, they're just having fun at this point. And then I love the end because it actually sounds like Phil Collins says YOLO, even though he doesn't. But he's like, YOLO. So if you want to know what this song actually is, it is a joke. The song is a joke. It's this is the one that's meant to be a parody of new wave and punk at the time. At the time, new wave bands and punk bands were doing some very experimental things that people thought sounded weird. So Phil Collins was just like, you know what? Let's just make a joke song, and we'll just make the song as weird as possible. We'll have a bunch of fun doing it, and it'll be our parody of punk and new wave. And they performed this song live. They did. They performed this song live. And when they did it, Phil Collins wanted to parody punk and new wave even more, because the punk artists and the new wave artists would get on stage and they would dress up in weird costumes and do weird stuff. So Phil Collins, when he did this live, would wear swim trunks and a pool snorkel and sing this song. And the first time they played it, they got booed really bad because they didn't get the joke. It's a joke. It's a joke. They didn't get it.
Oh wow.
But you can watch the video. Just look at Genesis Who Done It Live. It's hilarious. Phil Collins is up there with this snorkel singing, wasn't you, wasn't me. And Tony Banks is up there with like a serious look on his face, like he's about to file your taxes or something, playing all these weird sounds on the keyboard. The only keyboard part that I think is even funnier when Tony Banks plays it is I Can't Dance, because literally his keyboard part is just triggering random funky sounds to get played on the keyboard. So he's got like a blank expression. It's like, but we'll get back to that when we get to I Can't Dance, because that's even funnier to watch when he plays that. But yeah, who done it, man?
Yeah, I will say, because I didn't realize that the song was meant to be a parody when I listened to it. Now knowing that it is, I love the song even more, because I'm not the biggest punk fan. I would think I'd rather listen to this song than like half the punk songs out there.
Yeah. And even then, if you look at what Tony Banks is doing in this song, I was watching a video earlier where somebody just played all the synth parts to this song. It's super complicated. It's not easy to play. So even what some consider a throwaway song is super complicated. There's a lot more going on than what you would think. So we spent a lot of time talking about who done it.
Yeah.
Okay.
The worst Genesis song.
Not in my book.
Not me neither. I was just as a joke.
Now we're gonna talk about. Oh, I love this one. Man on the Corner.
I love this song too, and this was this was a hit single too, I think. And this was a blind spot, much like No Reply at All. Starts off with a drum machine, some interesting chords on the synthesizer, and then Phil Collins singing about a man on the corner, homeless guy. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is the precursor to Another Day in Paradise. I thought that was pretty neat that Genesis tackled the song with similar subject matter. At first, I wasn't sure I'd get into the song because I think the lyrics, the drum machine, I felt like it was kind of a mismatch. But then I just Then the more I dove deep into it, the more I thought this was a really epic tune. To be honest, I think this song is more epic than Another Day in Paradise. I've always liked that song from Phil Collins, but I think this one, I think the lyrics are better. I think they're sharper. I think they hit a sharper sting to what he's trying to say. To where I think Another Day in Paradise, I could see some saying might be too on the nose. This one, I think, just drives the point across with its storytelling. And then once Phil does the actual drumming after the drum mixed with the drum machine, it's really awesome. I think I'm actually going to say it. This is my favorite song on the album. It's amazing.
That's a good choice.
It's a great song.
So, just going off what you're saying there, I like Phil's work with Genesis better than his solo material. Don't get me wrong. I love it. Look, Hello, I Must Be Going is sitting out over there. I listened to that record earlier today. That's a great record. But when I think about what makes Phil Collins really great, I just feel like the contributions from Tony and Mike really just elevate like what Phil has in his head. Like, it's great whenever Phil wants to do an R&B inspired tune with horns in it. Like you'd have on Face Value, there's a song called I Missed Again. Love that song. But then you listen to like No Reply at All, and that sounds kind of like that. But then you also got contributions from Tony and Mike, and it's like, man, that's really good. Or like take something like Another Day in Paradise and compare it with an album that came out kind of recently, Invisible Touch, songs like Land of Confusion, Tonight, 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 Throwing It All Away. It's like, if I compare the big songs on the Genesis albums, I like them better than the songs on the Phil Collins solo albums. That's not a knock to Phil solo, but I don't know. I just feel like Phil Collins is even better whenever he has Tony and Mike with him. But as for Man on the Corner, oh my goodness. We got that drum machine at the beginning to set the mood. Some people might say it's just In the Air Tonight Part 2. No, it's different. And then you get the synthesizer from Tony Banks. Boom, 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 no, 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 no. And then the song just kind of builds and builds and builds until the very end. You get Phil Collins comes in with the real drums. And man, that outro, it's so good. This is such a great song. I love this song. It's I don't have a lot more to say about it, but it's in my top 5. Very high on my top 5 too. It's just, that's how good the song is. Go listen to it. Okay, so now we're going to get to Like It or Not.
Like It or Not. So we get a ballad. This is another really good song. I don't have as much to say on this one. I think it's in the lower end of my song ranking along with Me and Sarah Jane. But I do really like the chorus of the song. And I think this one has some good guitar work on it that I really liked. So I still really liked it, but I don't think it's as strong as some of the best stuff on the album.
Here's my only problem with the album. From this point on, I feel like it kind of tanks at the end. You had such an amazing album, and then it kind of tanks off with these last 2 songs. Now, Like It or Not, I've learned to appreciate a lot more. I love this song now. I still think it's kind of weak compared to the other stuff, but I like it a lot more than I did when I first heard this album. I used to think this was just a throwaway song. Now I like the song. It's just not as good as some of the other stuff. So I like kind of the swing feel to it. The dun 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 ba dun 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 ba dun 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 dun. And my favorite part of the song is the "It's been a long, 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 long time since I held anybody." I like that part, but the rest of the song, especially the part that's supposed to be the big hook, like it or not, da 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 da. I don't like that as much. I feel like the "It's been a long, 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 long time" should have been the chorus, and they should have had it come in sooner. Like this song kind of needs a little bit of reworking. It has potential to be a big hit or an artsy piece or whatever you want it to be. You Genesis fans who only like the Gabriel stuff, but the "It's been a long, 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 long time" should have been the chorus and change the title. Like I like the "like it or not" part, but it's not as good. Like the ending, that's the catchy part. That's what you should have had be the chorus. So I like this song. It's just it's gonna be in my bottom two. It's my second to least favorite on the album. But I still like it. It's just not as good. And now we are going to get to the final song on the album, Another Record.
Yeah, this is another really weird song on the album. I think it's a really good song. It's got some great drumming on it. The hook of this song kind of cracks me up because I feel like Phil Collins is trolling the audience with this song. It's like, listen to another record. I'm like, you talking about another Genesis album? Or are you talking about just any album in general? Because
The
it's
way
like,
that it's the last song on the album and it repeatedly says "put another record on."
that is kind of brilliant, actually. It's kind of a subliminal message. It's like, I think that's the point of the song, and I think the song's pretty brilliant on that fact. I actually love it for that reason. It's not in my top five, but because I like the joke of this song, it's a strong honorable mention.
Oof. This is one of my least favorite Genesis songs. It ranks slightly above everything on Genesis to Revelation, but like I'd rather listen to something like Horizons or After the Ordeal, one of the instrumentals, than this. I think this is a terrible closing track. It does not end the album off well at all, in my opinion. Like, yeah, you got the joke, "put another record on" is repeated a lot at the end, and it's the last song on the album. But I'm like, once you get away from the novelty of that, it's like there's not much here with this song. I mean, this is kind of Genesis's commentary on aging rockers because they realize that they're kind of getting older now, and it's about like rock stars who realize that they're getting old and they just want to, instead of make music, just sit back and listen to music. But apart from that joke, A and B, Tony Banks's Yamaha CP whatever electric piano intro is really great. I like that, but it's very different than the actual song. Once the song comes in, it's a lot different than that intro. And it just leaves me very disappointed. I always skip this song. Like it, I'll end the album with "Like It or Not." So here's my proposition. I haven't shown you them yet, but I would replace "Like It or Not" with "Paper Late," which was a hit single. It was an outtake, and it was released as a single later on from Three Sides Live whenever that came out. And then I would replace Another Record, the album closer, with "You Might Recall," which is a much better album closer. Man, "You Might Recall" really should have been on this album because it would have been one of my favorite songs. I'll show you that one later, but it's really catchy, and I feel like it has more of a closing track feel to it than Another Record. So that is ABACAB by Genesis. Let's go ahead and get into our top five.
All right. Well, I'm going to give two honorable mentions, Dodo Lurker and Another Record. Top five. Number 5, Keep It Dog. Number 4, Who Done It?
Yes.
Number 3, ABACAB. Number 2, No Reply at All. Number 1, Man on the Corner.
That's a good choice. Okay, I haven't made my list yet, so that means I got to start at the top. My favorite song is Dodo Lurker. That song is awesome. I've loved that song since the first time I've heard it. It's just so weird, but so amazing. Number 2 is Man on the Corner. Love that song. Love that song. Number 3, Me and Sarah Jane. Number 4, ABACAB. And number 5, Who Done It?
The worst Genesis song, both of our top five.
Yep. It's because it's fun. It's like Robbery, Assault, and Battery. There's people that hate that song, but I'm like, it's hilarious. A, B, when Tony Banks gets to the keyboard breakdown. Oh. What are you going to give this out of a 10?
10 out of 10.
Nice.
This is an amazing Genesis album. I think it's currently my second favorite Genesis album behind A Trick of the Tail. I'm a sucker for the 80s production. There's just some great songs. There's some clever songs. There's some goofy songs. There's some nonsense songs. There's songs with a meaning to it, like Man on the Corner. I think this is a really strong Genesis album that maybe gets a little too much hate from some, but I think it's terrific. I think this one stands out and delivers differently than what A Trick of the Tail does, but yet both show that Genesis is such a talented and versatile band that can do different genres and do two different sounds of music and still put out some great stuff. And I think you can enjoy the different eras of Genesis. I think
yes. If you like the production of this one, Hugh Padgham stays on for the next 2 albums.
Gotcha.
So it sounds.
I'm excited to listen to those albums. Then
you're gonna love the next 2 albums. Although the next 2 albums are the most commercial sounding ones, according to the purists. But that's not a bad thing in my book. The follow up is their self-titled album, the Shapes album. You probably know at least 3 of the songs on there. Mama, That's All. Home by the Sea, Just a Job to Do.
Of the ones you've mentioned, I think the only one I know is That's All.
Okay, well that's on there.
I love that song.
It was the first Genesis album I ever listened to. I heard Phil Collins was in a band because I was looking for That's All to buy on iTunes, and I didn't see That's All by Phil Collins. I saw That's All by Genesis and thought, oh, Phil Collins is in a band. And then I was in my early stages of record collecting. The self-titled Genesis album was one of the first 5 records I got because I liked That's All so much. Bought the record, listened to it, and thought, this is so weird. But we'll get to that self-titled album next time. For me, I'm going to give this a 9.5 out of 10. And it's because of those last 2 songs. I would give it a 10 if it wasn't for the last 2 songs, but they kind of bring it down just a bit for me.
Fair.
Had Paperlight and You Might Recall have been the 2 songs at the end, I would have given this a 10 out of 10. But at least if I have those songs on 3 Sides Live. 3 Sides Live, it's exactly as the name implies. It's a double album. 3 sides of the album are a live album, which side 3 is epic. It's got a really cool version of In the Cage from Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, but it's Phil singing. And they do this thing where they play In the Cage, and then they have this little medley of some of their instrumental songs. They got like the keyboard solo from Cinema Show. They got the Raven section from Colony of Slippermen. They got a little bit of Riding the Scree in there. And then they do Afterglow. And man, that's my favorite side. Well, either that or the studio side. But side 4 is the studio side because it's 3 sides live and then 1 side studio. The studio side has some of their outtakes from Duke and from ABACAB. And it's got that song Evidence of Autumn that I showed you. And then it has the outtakes from ABACAB. But anyway, love this album. It's going to get a 9.5. You can tell I really love Genesis because all of their albums have been getting like 9s and 10s for me. But really excited for next time whenever we're going to dive into the self-titled album. Very different from the stuff they've done before, a bit more commercial, but you know what's interesting about this next album is that this next album, the writing credits go away. Every song is credited to Rutherford, Banks, Collins because they wanted it to be a team affair and split all of the royalties equally. And a lot of the songs also were built on jam sessions rather than individual members writing. So they would just go into the studio and they'd just do something and record it. And what's also interesting is that they were rich enough to buy their own studio at this point. They bought, it was called The Farm, and it was their own recording studio. So their next few albums are going to be recorded at their own personal studio, which is cool too.
Yeah. I'm excited to dive into that album. The
It
album with the shapes.
it's really cool. It's another one that gets too much unnecessary hate. And then you know what comes after the Shapes album?
That's Invisible Touch, right?
That one right there. I'm really excited to talk about that one. But we will see you guys next time when we talk about the self-titled Genesis album. I don't think I have anything more to say, so that's all.